Well folks, it's been a while. With Tears of the Kingdom being a priority for the last year or so, Breath of the Wild content has basically stopped altogether. But, to finish things off, we've got one more video based on that game. One last video that's been in limbo for about a year or two. Yep, it's our facts video alongside the Bread Pirate, looking at some of the most interesting things about Breath of the Wild. Take it away, Bread.
Oh, is that my cue? Oh, okay, got it, yeah. And hey, my name is the Bread Pirate. I love bread and I love talking about Zelda facts, so it is great to be here.
Thanks, Bread. It's great to see you here and covering these awesome Zelda related facts. They're all things your fans be interested in for sure, including some you want to cover yourself for a while now. But enough waffling, time to go on with the actual video.
The last people in the world. Let's start with a very little known fact about the one-hit obliterator trial. As you might know, escaping gets rid of most of the NPCs in the game. This includes all of the enemies, aside from the Malice, Guardian Stalkers, and a few bosses, plus all of the wildlife outside of the Great Plateau. But did you know that there is one exception to this rule? Yep, if you go to the Gerudo town, the townsfolk are all still present. Their sand seals are gone, the wildlife in the area is nowhere to be found, and the mood will be very somber, yet the actual townspeople will somehow still be there. Looks like they were able to successfully evade another world-ending cataclysm.
What's a convenient amiibo? And that's not the only interesting DLC detail. No, the Varidania Divine Helm brings one too. Why? Because it's the only piece of amiibo armour you can use to get part of the game. Just get it after clearing a Divine Beast, and you've got an early piece of flameproof armour letting you safely reach Goron City without the need for elixirs or food. Pretty cool really.
Can I get a refund on this helm? Speaking of helms, did you know that the Thunder Helm is a ripoff too? If you find a way of getting it before going into the raid on Von Naboris, it will not protect you from lightning strikes at all. So much for divine protection, am I right?
Why a blood moon now? But not all facts involve armour here. No, some involve blood moons too. More precisely, how they can occur in places they're not meant to. Like say, the Varidania stealth mission. Yep, you can be stopped mid-battle by a blood moon during a stealth mission, despite it being impossible in any other dungeon and boss fight in the game. Fortunately, if this happens, then sentries remain destroyed, but any moblins you killed will come back for more.
The only person fooled by Lynx Gerudo disguise. Another interesting detail involves this guy behind the wetland stable. His name is Quince, and he's got a personality quirk that sets him apart from almost every other NPC outside of Gerudo Town. That being, he actually falls for Lynx Gerudo disguise. However, if you give it a minute, he'll eventually figure out that you aren't actually a female. Regardless, the whole situation is incredibly amusing.
Hello? He's right there. Unfortunately, his attention to detail doesn't exactly extend to Lord of Mountain, who he's somehow completely incapable of recognising, despite having encountered it in the past. So, he's got dialogue for a situation the game never hints at, but not for something actually discusses straight up. Wow, what a weird choice, Nintendo.
An unusual, highly in detail. Hey, but NPC dialogue isn't the only interesting place you'll find Easter eggs in the game. No. You can also find Hylian text throughout the game that has lots of Easter eggs. For instance, if you look in the diaries and books throughout Hyrule and then translate the text on the pages, you'll realize that it's all one big elaborate April Fool's Day joke. And that it's not really talking about whatever the book is supposed to be about. I love this detail, and it's one of those things that I'm surprised ever made it into the game.
I still can't read this? Speaking of reading, you can also find a few books in Gerudo Town you can't usually read. These are on high shelves and give you a message saying they're too high up to read if you try to interact with them. But did you know this is true even if you can read the book? Yep, if you bring a treasure chest or other object there and stand on it, Link will still say it's too high up to read despite being right in front of him. Are you sure about that, buddy? Or are you just not interested in reading this one?
I guess the rocks haven't fallen yet. Yet while some ingenuity doesn't pay off, in other places it does. For instance, you know how Yunobo gets caught behind the falling boulders in the northern mine and you have to break him out with a cannon? Well, it turns out you can skip that with ease by simply going there before triggering the quest to save Yunobo. If you do so, the rocks won't be blocking the entrance to the cave he's in. And this will allow you to put a travel medallion there so that you can warp back there once the quest is started. Voila! No more finicky cannon controls here.
That's a safe area? Another interesting detail you may not know about are the safe areas. These are placed in the game where enemies won't attack Link, and they're usually found around stables and villages. Yet did you know they're actually more common than that? Yep, quite a few places in the game have tiny safe areas around specific NPCs and landmarks. These include the places Hestu appears, places Dire waits outside the Colosseum, and the places Cass appears in the Obliterator trial. If you stand at these tiny random spots, enemies will completely ignore you. Guess that wall or tree is just too scary for them.
There they go. Despite this, it still seems that everybody is afraid of monsters, including Kilton, who can actually walk around and get scared if you push him outside of his shop. Oh man, for being a monster fanboy, he sure doesn't like being around him.
Statue says, come back later. But enough about monsters for now, let's talk about statues. Namely, the horned one in Hateno Village. Usually, this takes a heart from Link when you first interact with it. And if he doesn't have one, it will take a stamina vessel instead. Yet did you know there's dialogue for not having either? Yep, if you try to use it with no upgrades at all, the statue will just send Link away instead, since he can't leave him with less than 3 hearts or 1 stamina wheel.
The Eye of the Stalnox. Stalnoxes can be pretty scary, but there's no need to be scared of them once you figure out that you can kill them in 1 hit. All you have to do is hit him in the eye, let the eye fall out, grab it, and then run away from the spawn point. The boss will literally just drop dead, which is pretty amusing when you consider that you're only walking like a bridge away and it just is disintegrating.
Still alert while dead, I see. Meanwhile, Yiga guards are surprisingly diligent with their duties. That's because if you kill them during an alarm cutscene, they'll still blow the whistle despite being dead. And it gets even sillier if you activate arms. Arms is a glitch unless you disable cutscene triggers, and if that glitch is active and you alert the Yiga guards, they'll actually activate the alarm when the glitch ends, even if they're all completely dead. Presumably, even eventual ghosts want to make Link suffer this time around.
Why are the guards back? And yet the strange behavior of the Yiga does not end there. Oh no, there are some other odd things in that area too. For instance, that doing anything that reloads the campfire will bring back all of the guards. So yeah, if you somehow use a campfire or save and reload there, you're soon gonna regret it.
The secret goddess statue message. On a different note, goddess statues have some interesting details of their own. Most notably, there's actually a message for trying to use one with max hearts and stamina. Given the number of spirit orbs in the game, and that you can't get enough to get max hearts and stamina, it's unknown why this message exists. Maybe you could do so at one point?
All in a row. Speaking of the Obliterator and its trials, you usually can't clear out multiple camps of enemies there. But did you know that the game actually has a failsafe in case you do? If you somehow clear multiple camps at once, the game will just run through all of the shrine cutscenes one after another, regardless of how far apart they might be. It looks interesting for sure.
Those aren't the same styles. On to a few last enemy facts now. Namely, do you ever wonder how the stale enemies you encounter in the Lost Woods keep surviving? How despite it being daytime, you can still be accosted by those things? Well, as it turns out, the reason is quite simple. They're not actually the same styles as ones in other areas. Instead, the ones in the Lost Woods and Typhlo Ruins are a special variant that can survive during the daytime, and bringing them outside will let you chill out with them in Hateno Village or whatever instead. Wonder why Ganon never used these guys in his army instead.
The Boa Blinds Curse. And finally, we come to my favorite fact on the list, which we lovingly call the Boa Blinds Curse, which is one of the most obscure Easter eggs in the game. Essentially, if you look into the game's code, you'll discover that the amount of Stalkoblins that spawn on the Great Plateau is tied to whether you have killed a Bokoblin at some point beforehand. Or, to be more specific, if you have ever picked up a Bokoblin club, then the game will start spawning more Stalkoblins than it did before. So instead of skeletal enemies only being found at the beginnings of shrines and outside of landmarks, they'll just start spawning everywhere. It's such a small detail, but it adds so much to the game in making your actions feel like they have consequences, even on just the Great Plateau.
Either way, that's the list. It was tough putting it together, especially given the age of the game and how many fact videos have been posted on YouTube, but I think we did a great job here, right? Let's see what Brett has to say.
Well, thanks again for having me on the show. This was fantastic.
Thanks Bread, we're glad you found the facts interesting here too. And we hope the same goes for everyone watching the video. So what did you think? Were there any items you already knew about? What other interesting details do you know about Zelda Breath of the Wild or Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Leave your thoughts in the comments below on social media or our Discord server today.